I don't know where Uncle Will and Uncle Ed were. Aunt Irene was off at a boarding school and then went to the convent to become a nun. So, no, Mother didn't have to. She was the oldest in the family, and when her mother died, she sort of came home for a while. But it wasn't for the whole year. She went back to Smith at some point after her mother died. But she was just a freshman in college when her mother died. And I don't know. I know her. I don't know when it was her father died, but it was before Mother and Daddy met. So.
I'm just another question about the whole Depression era. Do you remember, like, finish everything on your plate because of starving kids in Africa?
Oh, starving Armenians, of course. Of course. Oh, there was no such thing as wasting any food. You had to finish everything. And, I mean, I'm amused because we have a little glass that was a finjan, actually, that we had when we were in Turkey, which was the size of the orange juice. We never had orange juice. You never sold it. It wasn't sold when I was a little kid. But even years afterwards, up at the Robinson house, when I don't know, maybe you didn't even have orange juice then, but that was the stuff.
That's not a moth.
That's not a moth.
No. No, it looks like some kind of bug, but not a moth.
And the way you kids could have, anything you wanted, seconds, thirds, whatever. Are you a baby moth? Anyway. No, but I was always very well fed at my friends' houses. No, you finished everything. I can remember one summer, I guess a couple of summers, they were able to rent out the house. Now, what house am I thinking? It might have been 180, the beautiful house, our family's house. One summer we went to a cottage that some friends had on Candlewood Lake in Connecticut. And another summer we went to Farmer Miles' farm in Litchfield. And I can remember sitting there and we milked my mother, I think, maybe my brother also, milked the cow, and we had dark blue glass, and there was a lot of cream in the milk, and I just couldn't make myself drink it. And I remember sitting there for a couple of hours and seeing the cream just sort of creep up the edge of the glass, and I couldn't leave the table until I had drunk it, and I think I was there, probably till 11 o'clock in the morning. Waste not, want not.
And that was because of your mother's...
Yeah, she made me do it. There are real advantages, to have been brought up in the Depression, because there's very little that I can't do without and haven't done without.
Right.
And so I'm always very grateful for anything that's nice.
Do you think that having grown up during that time, there's also kind of a sense of fearfulness about not having... you can deal with a lot less, but at the same time, do you think there was a sense of fearfulness of being wanting in any way?
No, but certainly the idea of being in debt is something I never wanted to have anything to do with. And I think maybe Dad went along with it, but I know that after we bought the house up there, after we bought Chibate, I don't remember how many years we'd had it, but it seemed possible to pay off the mortgage. I mean, the mortgage was, of course,
Right.
it was at 2%.
Mm-hmm.
He had a GI loan,
Mm-hmm.
and 2%, and we paid the house and all the land and everything cost $14,500. Still, that was, we didn't have any money, so that would seem like quite a lot of money. And we had a minimal mortgage, but we nibbled it down and down and down, and finally at one point it seemed possible just to pay it off. And, whether it was giving $1,000 in a lump sum or something like that. I remember we did it with just great excitement. Just to be rid of it. So, and people were saying, "Oh, you're so foolish. It's much better to have a mortgage. It makes property much more valuable." And the idea of having debt just has always, and so, and the thing is that
But how do you see that as a product of the Depression, or do you, because people were ruined because of their debt during that time, or?
Well, just the idea of having that kind of worry hanging over you.
Right.
I know it was a source of terrible anxiety for my parents.
Yeah.
And that was, that's not fun.
And how long were you in the Robinsons' house before they offered to sell it to your parents?
I don't know how long, but, they bought that humongous house. It was a number of years later, because my father was working and Mother had all this teaching and things. So they were able to do it, and I think without a mortgage. And I think they bought it for $5,000. This is the house that I saw advertised in the New York Times Sunday real estate thing a few years ago.
Right.
For $15 million.
Right. And what was the address of that place? Do you know?
55 Otter Rock Drive. We just moved from 180 Otter Rock Drive up to 55. It was on the corner.
I see.
And my closest friend, Needy Kanzi, lived right next door. And it was a monster house. It had, if I could say, 5 floors. Well, it had this whole kitchen, which was the basement, with a stove. Well, anyway, humongous. It had a dumbwaiter that went up to the first floor for food, and then it had a dumbwaiter for freight and people that was like an elevator. It was huge. We didn't use that because that was kind of scary. But that went all the way up. Then there was this second floor where our bedrooms were, and then there was 1, 2, 3, 4. My brother lived up on the 4th floor, and on the 4th floor there were 8 maids' rooms. 8. So you can imagine the kind of staff that was needed to run that house. We had no servants.
And they kept that house until your father passed away, or how long did they?
No, until after Dad and I were married. Digging them out of there was just something, the two of them rattling around in this monster house all by themselves. And it was not easy for them to